Welcome everyone to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue. We are talking wrestling news as ever, and we have quite a list of headlines to cover. Firstly, the Bray Wyatt return, Roman Reigns and Becky Lynch potentially taking time off, as well as Seth Rollins. Logan Paul choosing Ricochet over LA Knight, and when that LA Knight push is going to come. But there are plenty more headlines as well. We'll be talking Edge cut from SummerSlam. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens also missing out. The Judgment Day Gold Rush. Paul Heyman taking the bump that he did 2 weeks ago on SmackDown. Rhea Ripley in her championship reign, how long that's going to last and who it's going to be against, including a planned match at SummerSlam that was not to be. Bobby Lashley's next steps, particularly the possibility of Bobby Lashley in NXT, and a big name in a different company that the WWE desperately want back. Welcome everyone. Please be sure to hit like as you join the show. Every little does help in that regard, and it does help boost our numbers and help our growth. We've been growing very, very well recently, and I really do appreciate all of that effort from you guys to make that happen. So many people already here. Hello Khalid, hello Brad, hello Daz, hello Daniela, hello Ross, hello Jaden, hello Airwolf, hello Aaron, hello Eric, hello FDR, hello Squid, hello Spider Boss, hello Chris, I believe it is, CBRS. I spotted you in a stream from OLE recently, and I believe I now know your name. Correct me if I'm wrong. Hello Bailey as well. Hello Wiggly. So many people. Hello Jordan. Hello CM. Hello Daniel Berry. We are a hectic place right here, right now, and I appreciate all of you for choosing the Tom Colohue channel. Hello Peter. We will be going into quite a lot of detail as quite a lot of news, and we'll be trying to get through as much of it as possible. Chris Best, thank you. Welcome, mate. Nice to see you. I didn't realise how much crossover we had until I started seeing so many names pop up there. Hello RF Gaming as well. So plenty of updates to come, plenty of information that you're going to be getting, and I appreciate all of you being here to join me. I'll also have plenty of questions for you guys as well to see what you're thinking as well and see how we're going there. Hello Michael, how are you doing, mate? Hello Eric as well. So plenty of people already in the chat, plenty of questions already coming in. This will be, as usual, an Ask Me Anything stream, and I'll attempt to answer every question that you have. But first, it would be very rude and very remiss of me not to start off by talking about Bray Wyatt. So, let's get into it. I've been reporting on Bray Wyatt's status for a number of months now. I originally reported that he would be returning a month before he did, and while I did not report when, if you watch the match before he does, you can tell things are changing. I try not to give every little detail away. More often than not, when I know something, I'll give you what I have firmly confirmed. Anything that I have not got 100% confirmed, such as, for example, he's debuting this week, I tend not to do. Hence why for Drew McIntyre, I told you he is on his way back. There is a plan in place that will see him challenge Gunter at SummerSlam for the Intercontinental Championship. After that, yes, we talked about the possibility of Drew McIntyre returning to face Seth Rollins, but I didn't actually report that as news. I speculated on that and I made that clear at the time. This is what I like to do. I like to tell you, this is the situation, and I like to tell you, here is where we're going. That's the important thing. When it comes to Bray Wyatt, here is the simple, basic fact. There is just rumours about him returning at SummerSlam. My first question, do you want to see Bray Wyatt return and challenge, for example, Cody Rhodes? Are you interested in a Bray Wyatt return against someone of that caliber, top level, someone like Cody Rhodes? Because that's the rumours that we're seeing. This started from Zero News, who, as we spoke about on Friday, are clearly not reliable. Clearly not reliable. That said, if Bray Wyatt returns and attacks Cody Rhodes, that certainly adds to their overall level of reliability. So they're staking their reputation on this. That said, they also staked their reputation that Bray Wyatt would be coming back for the previous pay-per-view. They also staked their reputation that The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin would be doing a stare-down at the Royal Rumble. Now, we went through Zero News' reports for the Royal Rumble. Of the 13 reports that they made, 2 were correct. 2 out of 13 is not a good score, and yet people still track and follow these guys. Do you follow Zero News on Twitter? I want to ask you this question, really basic, really simple. Do you follow Zero News on Twitter? Because if so, you will know how reliable they are and how much value you're getting for your investment. Thank you, Airwolf. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Bailey, as well. Thank you, CM Squid, for answering these questions. I really do appreciate it. The questions, by the way, boost the chat rate, and it really does help the growth of the channel. FDR as well saying no. Lots of no's in that chat. So, the report from Zero News, I went to look this up to be very clear about the situation. I looked it up. Their report was Bray Wyatt is returning at SummerSlam in one of these 3 matches, but not that match. Why would you mention 3 matches and then say but not one of them? Why don't you just mention 2 matches? Because if it is the one you're saying it's not, you still get to pat yourself on the head and say, yeah, we knew. And that's the thing that makes a huge question mark for me. A huge question mark. Why would you, in a report, mention something that isn't happening? Why would you mention it at all? If you're saying this is going to happen, why would you then say, but this isn't going to happen? And here's the big question for me. My report and everything I've been reporting is that we are very close to a return for Bray Wyatt. I've been reporting that for a number of weeks. There is finally a storyline that Bray Wyatt is invested in bringing to your screens. Finally a storyline where that's going to work. Bobby Lashley and Bray Wyatt have been split. They are no longer going forward as they were. If he did return at SummerSlam, there was a plan in place for him to continue the feud with Bobby Lashley. That was one of the plans in place. Now at the moment, plans for Cody Rhodes are relatively thin on the ground. It's hard to say what's going to happen next for Cody Rhodes. Because of that availability, certainly I think a lot of people are assuming that Cody Rhodes is going to face someone new and someone big. But Bray Wyatt wasn't a heel. And if you step up against Cody Rhodes, there is a chance that you're going to muddy the water. The WWE, particularly Vince, are heavily protecting Cody right now, working very hard to maintain his position as a face, with the intention of making him the top face in the company very soon. Very soon. This ties into a report that I'll be mentioning later. With this in mind, they don't want the potential of throwing him against someone as popular as Bray Wyatt. More likely in that situation, let me know if you'd be interested in this, pardon me, we would get Bray Wyatt versus Brock Lesnar. Now, the WWE have tried to give us Bray Wyatt versus Brock Lesnar before. Unfortunately, we were unlucky at that point and Bray Wyatt picked up an injury. Bray Wyatt has picked up a number of injuries when they've tried to give us this sort of situation. Bray Wyatt versus Brock Lesnar is not something that I'm told Brock Lesnar is very interested in. Brock Lesnar would rather face off against Gunter, and that is something else that should be planned in the near future. Personally, I think Gunter versus Brock Lesnar may be what we end up with for WrestleMania, but not for any championship. So, the situation with Zero News is that they've reported it will either be that match, which doesn't make sense, or Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso, which makes even less sense. Even less sense. The Bloodline is a mafia-style storyline, grounded in reality. Domestic abuse is literally a huge part of the storyline. Relationships where one person does not want to be there, but is being controlled, is a huge part of this storyline. How does Bray Wyatt fit that world? He doesn't. Would you be at all happy to see Bray Wyatt get involved in the main event between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso? That's not something that works for me. It really isn't. Peter Robert quite rightly saying Zero News also reported that Roman Reigns versus The Rock was planned for WrestleMania 40. Lots of no's once again in the comments. So this creates immediate difficulty. The other option is that Bray Wyatt reappears during the match between Finn Balor and Seth Rollins. But Zero News said he absolutely wouldn't. But they did say it was an option, but he wouldn't. It was an option that they wouldn't take. So why mention it? Why mention it? Now, I'm going to be really blunt here. I don't think it's impossible that Bray Wyatt returns at SummerSlam. I don't. But I think Logan Paul would be the target, personally. I think that would make a lot more sense than what we're seeing at the moment. Potentially Austin Theory would make a lot more sense. But if it's Austin Theory, then the simple situation is LA Knight may end up missing out there. The world of WWE doesn't make a lot of sense with Bray Wyatt in it. Bray Wyatt does not fit wrestling. So he has to create a situation whereby he takes people out of wrestling and into his world. LA Knight did fantastic in that role. LA Knight got destroyed and he moved on. He was promised a push, which hasn't yet materialized because Triple H wasn't able to guarantee it after WrestleMania. So, what next? Things don't really make a lot of sense for Bray Wyatt. Except maybe Logan Paul, which I've mentioned before, and I think I'll keep mentioning. Now, I know the answer here. I don't think many of you are excited about the idea of Logan Paul versus Bray Wyatt. But when you factor in the other options, when you factor in what we could have instead, does that change your mind at all? Because I'm going to be honest, it would certainly change mine. I'd certainly be a lot more interested. Squid suggests Finn versus Bray. I can't see that. Primarily because of Damien Priest having the briefcase. I definitely think we're going to see a lot more of Damien Priest and the briefcase than we are as regards The Fiend. Also as regards the Demon King, Finn Balor really doesn't enjoy using it anymore. He really doesn't. That's why it loses so much now. Bray Wyatt's return is a very, very difficult situation because he returned with a house on fire. He's had one wrestling match in almost a year and he just hasn't been able to rise up in the ranks in any way. Whatever they do with him next, it cannot be the top tier. It simply can't be. He has to go down the ladder. He has to be looking closer at competing with the Austin Theories. So personally, I'd wait another month. I'd have Austin Theory lose the championship to LA Knight. Then I would go with Austin Theory versus Bray Wyatt. That's what I would do personally. For me, that makes a lot more sense outside of, as I've already mentioned, Bray Wyatt versus Logan Paul. Please keep your comments coming, guys. I am trying to, I will now start trying to catch up and see what I can see here. If you do have questions and I haven't got to them, please do continue asking them. I will get to them, I promise. Eric says, I stopped believing in Zero News and all of their pop-up accounts. Peter Roberts says, Zero News source, I don't trust them. Daniela says, any news on what's going to happen with the tag titles? Yes, I am going to be bringing that up shortly. Spider-Boss said, I rather see Lashley or Solo Sikoa beating Roman instead of Jey Uso. Both are, I think, more likely. Ross says no to Zero News. Eric doesn't follow them. Khalid sees Bray Wyatt as a face. 23 Fresh, no. The Montreal Screwjob was not a work. Steve does not follow Zero News, says I've seen their reports from time to time and know not to trust it. This report in question had about 600,000 views when I found it. 600,000 views. Quite possibly reached 1 million by now because so many of the different outlets were advertising it when they have been proven wrong on so many things. And yet they don't report the news in here. It's insulting. Wiggly, no. Gunther will not become the World Heavyweight Champion without ever losing. Wiggly says, surely Wyatt picks up the win against Lesnar? No. Spiderbell says, Zero News, Sasha and Naomi will return. Also, they aren't needed back. Khalid says, Bray Wyatt's not for the bloodline, which I agree. Lots of no's as regards it. Wiggly agrees there's no scope for Wyatt in the bloodline story, but can get involved with Cody. Spiderboss says, who do you see taking the title from Austin Theory? I believe I answered that. Chris says, it doesn't work for me because I don't think Roman versus Jey is a blow-off for the bloodline feud. I agree there. I think Solo will be the one. Joey suggests Zero News isn't reporting anything, is just speculating. Then he needs to rewrite his tweets because he's reporting something. Errol says, throwing things at the wall till it sticks. The other Mike says, absolutely not. Not sure I want Bray back at all. Which is strong words, but I also kind of see where you're coming from. Hey Bruce, how you doing? Khalid wants Bray versus Logan Paul. Joey says, I hope Bray doesn't feud with Cody. That would be terrible because of Cody fighting puppets. Yeah, that's fair. Peter says, booking is unpredictable, which is very fair under the two cooks at the moment that we've got. LF says, keep Bray and his hocus pocus away from Roman. I agree there. Jordan says, the Royal Rumble for me was the last straw with Zero. Wiggly says, Tom, let's be honest, is Bray Wyatt really getting over with the fans? Yes. Spider-Boss says I wouldn't mind if Lashley got involved. Bailey says it may be time to release Bray for future endeavours. I certainly would give him another shot, but I think he needs to be more realistic and work with people lower down the card. Chris says I still want Bray versus Demon Balor. I don't think either of them want it is the issue. You are right about Bray needing to work different feuds. Spider-Boss says, see how has been Bray's second run. I'd rather have done the effort for bringing back Mercedes and Trinity. It is completely unrelated. There is no connection whatsoever between the two things you've said there. No connection whatsoever. Joey says I gave up on Zero News after he got everything wrong at Clash at the Castle. Yeah, literally everything. That was a bad night for him. If we actually go through the year, and one day we probably will, it's not going to look good. Daniela says, do you reckon we'll ever see Demon Finn again? Yes, when someone else decides so. Ross would go for Bray versus Paul. Marcel suggests Judgment Day versus Wyatt 6. We need to create the Wyatt 6 first. And by the time that happens, I feel like they'll have all moved on. Peter says maybe Bray Wyatt is unhappy with Vince McMahon's return. There is no correlation that I'm aware of. Bray and Vince have always got on great. Ross says, would Cena and Paul be a possibility going forward for WrestleMania? Depends entirely on the circumstances and the wrestlers themselves. Wiggly says, Zero News gets a big fat zero from me. Squid says, what do you think about the guys at What Culture? They don't seem to mention your news. Seems like it's only Sap and Meltzer. Yeah, nobody mentions my news, mate. You know this. You know this. It's a YouTube video. They tend not to watch the YouTube videos. They just read it off Twitter and then type it up. What Culture has previously completely misquoted my news because they've copy and pasted it from a different website who have interpreted my news differently, but put it in quotation marks, so they took that, which is just simply not what I said. So, not 100%, but I do think they do decent work, and I do have a lot of respect for the people there. Joey says, Bray feels like their biggest mystery right now. There's always conflicting reports on why he's out. Yep, because it's always massive clickbait. Even if Zero News completely did make this up and they're completely wrong, they've got a lot of traffic going to their websites and their Twitter account because of it. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. They've made a lot of money from it, and so have a lot of other media outlets. CM says, LA Knight missing out on SummerSlam, more on that shortly. Steve says the only way Bray versus Roman works is if they go off the next PLE Payback, place where Roman won the title from Bray to start his reign in 2020. Although he says, agree with you, not fitting with the current Roman storyline. Errol says Pillman reportedly had a tryout at the Performance Center. Source was a Wrestling Observer. Thank you for sourcing. Spider-Boss says, after seeing Zero News, I saw Brad Shepard written all over it, and I don't believe anything they say. Yeah, Brad Shepard writes for Zero News. No, Sean, you have not missed the Becky news. Chris, I used to work for Sportskeeda, but since I left, they haven't reported news at all. At all that I'm aware of. The only news I'm aware they reported was regards NXT India, and I'm pretty sure they got given that by WWE. Appreciate that, Moxie. Welcome to the show. Richard says, hey, Tom, I'm interested in Cody and Bray. Not so much Logan and Cody's people will see it as a step down for Bray. I think Bray needs to step down. Razar says, Bray versus Drew would make sense if he cost Drew the IC title. That's the only feud I can think of for Bray currently. Here's the issue. McIntyre demolishes people. Think about what happened with Karrion Kross. McIntyre demolishes people. Dad says, Tom, do you think Matt Hardy will be involved at All In or All Out? Maybe. Joey says, wouldn't be surprised if Vince being back in creative is a key factor for Bray not being back on TV. Once again, there's never been any issue that I'm aware of between Bray and Vince. There is no creative issue, to my knowledge, between Bray and Vince. Noob says, Bray Wyatt versus Austin Theory is going to be interesting. Hopefully we might have Bray reference to Vince McMahon as his dad. Bray wouldn't do that. That's not his play. It doesn't fit his storyline or world at all. Isaac says, build Bray Wyatt back up. I agree, but you need to drop him down to start that off. Welcome, Eve. How you doing? Evening. Well played. Well played. Hopefully I don't break anything by you being at my show this time. Will says, look at your track record with just how this month you reported on Drew, Bobby and Bray returns. People need any more proof how good you are at your job. I appreciate that, Will. It's a very nice thing to say and a very nice thing to read. Dark Society says, what's the news on LA Knight? Incoming. Joey says, 99% of Zero News reports are speculation. He has no inside info. Then he needs to phrase them as that. It's that simple. Phrase your news as news and your speculation as speculation. Otherwise, you're just intentionally misleading people. FDR says, Roman versus Bray is a booking nightmare. How do you even book such contrast of gimmicks? Hopefully you don't. It does not work for me, certainly. Spider-Boss says, with the year of the Judgment Day upon us, I think by late 2023, Judgment Day will have all the gold on Raw. More on that shortly. Chris says, I mention your news from time to time on OLE. Appreciate that, mate. Thank you kindly. Spider-Boss says, the tribal combat match means a no-holds-barred match, right? No idea. They have not clarified. I cannot confirm. For those who are looking for like a a Raw watch party. OLE are basically my Raw watch party when I'm watching Raw, so by all means check them out. That's what Chris is referring to. I know there's a lot of crossover between here and OLE, but I do highly recommend their work. Wiggly says, okay. Joe says, hey Tom, how you doing today? Doing well, thank you, Joe. Welcome to the show. CM says, any news on possible new Hurt Business and what are your thoughts on it? Incoming, yes. As soon as I've caught up, I will continue with the news, and there is quite a lot to cover. Joey says it would take over a year for this faction to form since Bray does everything really slow. Yeah, and it's already nearly a year in, and we've only seen them once. Eric says the only way I believe Bray Wyatt's return happening is if I see it with my own eyes, and that I think is fair. Isaac says, have Bray just go on a rampage, take out members of the roster like he used to when he's the Fiend? Nobody wants to be taken out by Bray Wyatt. That's the issue. Nobody wants to work with him. John says, I'm a huge Bray fan. I do like the mask gimmicks, but sometimes I just feel it would be best for Bray to just be Bray Wyatt the wrestler, not the supernatural monster. We don't live in a world in which Bray Wyatt exists as a wrestler. Peter says, is Roman Reigns scheduled for Payback or Fastlane? More on that very shortly. That's my next piece of news. Michael says, Kevin Dunn is still living the life despite Zero News reporting that he was fired. They did say that, didn't they? Yeah. Wiggly says, any news on a PLE in India? Not at this point in time, no. Buttery says, any plans for DIY? Though there is no DIY at this point in time. Eric says, who would you have as Bray's real-life puppets? There's a lot of people I feel could benefit from it. People you've mentioned there, certainly. Nikki Cross, I think, is guaranteed and would be great in that role. But I do think a lot of people who need it would be people like Karrion Kross. Chris says, it's become all opinion there lately. Yeah, pretty much. Spider-Boss says, I've got to admit it, I'm becoming a Jay White guy, and so you should. Moxie says, Tom, when are you going to do your SummerSlam previews and predictions? Very shortly. They'll be up over the next few days. FDR says, Brad Shepard writes for Zero News. Yes, he does. He's been ghostwriting for them. Andrew says, my prediction, Cody beats Brock. Taking music hits. Take a stairs down, Cody. No. Wiggly says, 1 year ago, Vince announced his retirement, aged about as well as rotten milk. Joey says, why is WWE holding off on pushing LA Knight? Because other people are already in place to receive pushes, so they're not ruining other people's pushes to push someone else. They're just waiting. And I think, honestly, that's the right move. LA Knight did have an opportunity to wrestle at SummerSlam, but he was turned down. Daniel, and it wasn't by Triple H or Vince McMahon. Daniela says, do you think AJ versus Cross will happen at SummerSlam? No. Danielle says, AJ needs to be on SummerSlam. He won't be. Joey says, maybe you could tell him, Tom. See how that goes. Spider-Ball says, I love putting you over with the wrestling news on Twitter. I don't mind how many people get angry. And I appreciate that. The other Mike says, all he has to do is get rid of the spooky stuff. Go back to cult leader Bray. I personally would really enjoy that. Brad says, if you phrase it as speculation, it wouldn't be an issue. And that really is the bone of contention I have here. Now, there are people who take what I interpret, what I speculate to be reports, which they're not. I try and make it as clear as I can what's news and what's speculation. For example, on Drew McIntyre, I reported he's returning soon. The WWE want to put him against Gunter for SummerSlam for the Intercontinental Championship. I speculated that if Drew's coming back as a heel, he'll need to come back against Seth Rollins. Marcel says, everyone like, please, and please do. We currently have 84 people watching and 38 likes. That means we have double and then some people watching compared to likes. If you're able, please hit that thumbs up. It does really help us grow. Yes, Daz, thank you very kindly. Daz has renewed his membership, and I very much appreciate you for that. Thank you kindly. Eddie says, any update on the 2025 WrestleMania host city? Nothing that I'm aware of. Razar says, what do you think of the BWE account? I see a lot of their reports all over Twitter and people referencing them. There are examples of BWE getting things right, which is pretty good compared to where Zero News was. Leon says, I love how people say they've given up on Bray and say they don't care, but looking at likes of your videos, particularly the shorts, the most liked ones are the ones involving Bray Wyatt, and you are absolutely not wrong. Pete says, does LA Knight have backstage heat in WWE? Nope, he has a lot of fans, and there are a lot of people who are ready to see him pushed. Daniel says, hi Tom, with Billy Gunn leaving his boots in the ring, any news on what are the plans for Daddy Ass? I have no idea. Personally, I think he may have retired. You know the deal says, just wanted to say, hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you for always delivering real news and facts as always. Thank you, you know the deal. I appreciate that. Kieran says, do people in WWE actually like Bray? Yes. Steve says, would prefer Bray Wyatt as the Eater of Worlds character. Me too. I think he's gone way too far in the opposite direction. Joey says, do you think Jey Uso versus Solo could happen at Payback? Yes. Spider-Boss says, at least we got the way on the main roster. Bailey says, any news on Liv's availability for SummerSlam? She is potentially available for SummerSlam, but they're not going to push her to be when they don't need her to be. Tim Buller says, hello, room. Hello, Tim. How are you? And LF says, apparently Tribal Court means no other members of the Bloodline can get involved. Perhaps that's why Solo got mad on Friday. Maybe so. So that would mean a non-member of the Bloodline getting involved. And there are plenty enough of those. Eric, I've covered at length what the OC's issue with Paul Heyman is. Literally at length for several weeks in a row. Daniela says, what are your thoughts on what's happening with Shotzi on SmackDown? It's given her very clear motive, very clear personality and character. I'm happy with what they're doing. It's also getting her on TV, which is always a good thing. Also, in general, working with Bayley is a great thing. She's very talented and always makes everyone she's working with look very good. Oof. So, let me know if you've hit like already. I would very much appreciate it if you can just let me know if you've already hit like as I get into my next piece of news, which is as regards Roman Reigns and the reports that he is taking time off after SummerSlam. Now, these once again are rumours, but it does make a lot of sense. Roman Reigns is in a position where he's been working every other week, and the fact that he's working every other week is more than his schedule is typically allowing. So he's working a lot more dates than he originally expected to. What this means is that later in the year, he has to take more time off, and this is the perfect time to do so. I personally don't believe we're going to see Roman Reigns defending his championship at Payback. I do think, as has been mentioned, Jay versus Solo probably makes more sense at this point in time. For me, Roman Reigns' big opportunity will be coming against Solo at WrestleMania. I said it's his opportunity. Really, it's more about Solo Sikoa's opportunity. But Roman Reigns taking time off has been on the agenda for a while. The dates of his contract do encourage that as a possibility. And I personally definitely think we are going to be seeing it. Lots of people already hitting likes. No Number of the Devil, you didn't miss the Bray Wyatt news. I just want you to rewind to about 2 minutes in. It's all there. Ronnie Southern, thank you for the very kind and generous donation. Says, just learned of your channel about a week or two. Thank you for your content and look forward to hearing from you more in the future. Thank you very much, Ronnie. I very much appreciate it. Your donation will go straight back into the growth of the channel. And thank you everyone who's hit likes so far as well. So many of you. Daniel, interesting. So many of you hitting like, and I very much appreciate it. So YouTube has a new feature where you can hit like on super chats. So I'm going to do that for you, Ronnie. And I'd just like to know, does anyone else have that feature or is it just me? Like, I'm going to read out super chats. I always do. I want to be very, very clear. I'm very, very grateful for your support, particularly financial support, obviously, because that's money you could use and you're supporting this channel with it. So huge thank you. Does anyone else have the ability to hit like on that? Or is it just me? Ooh. Isaac says, any update on JD McDonough? Yeah, they brought him in. They essentially used him as a way to tease the issues with Judgment Day. They now have the briefcase, so they don't need to use him in that manner. He's still going to be used going forwards, but they're waiting for the right move and the right situation for him to be in. Eddie, I have no idea what's going to happen with Brian Pillman Jr. I don't have a source on that one. Moxie says, Tom, I would have Cody versus Brock. Should have a 2 out of 3 falls match, tables match for the first submission, for the second, and strap match for the last. While that would be cool, it would take up a lot of time, and SummerSlam simply does not have that time. We currently have 2,545 subscribers. If we can get 5 more, that takes us to a record-breaking 2,550. If you've not yet done so, please consider hitting subscribe and ask your questions right here so I can try and answer them. Spiderboss says, do you know if there are any plans for the IWGP Women's title? Yes, there are. They're going to be using it and defending it, but the plan was built around Mercedes. They're trying to essentially work out what to do next, so they're taking their time about it. At the moment, it's the G1, which is a men's competition, hence why you haven't seen it. And Spiderboss says, I'm interested who's the big name that WWE want to bring back. Now, I'm interested to hear your reactions on this one. Thank you very much, Brad. I appreciate that. I'm interested to hear your reactions on the next one. There was a plan in place that would see Edge versus Grayson Waller on SummerSlam instead of where we ended up with. That being, of course, a match for a big debut for Grayson Waller. That would mean that Edge could also feature on the SummerSlam card. Edge had essentially been cut from SummerSlam to make room for other wrestlers, which is why Edge versus Grayson Waller happened earlier in time. It looks like this was also Edge's choice rather than just a booking choice. Triple H is looking to trim down the card, and he was grateful to take the opportunity. It looks like Edge essentially requested, based on his personal schedule, to not work SummerSlam. Hence why the match was brought forwards, and he made a 1 week only appearance against Grayson Waller on SmackDown. There was the intention to have that match at SummerSlam. That match has not taken place there and has already taken place on SmackDown. Edge was cut from SummerSlam. Are you happy with the match that we saw on SmackDown, or would you rather have had it with the much more high profile element where it was at SummerSlam? So, SmackDown or SummerSlam for Edge? Alex Pierce says, do you want Bray to feud with Dominic Mysterio? I wouldn't hate it. I don't think I can honestly say that I would love it, but I wouldn't hate it. Dominic Mysterio certainly gets those reactions, but it wouldn't just be Dominic Mysterio. The issue is, Rhea Ripley would also want to pick a fight with Bray Wyatt, and that's why I can't see it happening. Because one, they're not going to do the intergender element, and two, when it comes to Rhea Ripley, they're not going to let her run away. So that's why I don't see that happening. I think a lower down the table heel makes more sense. I mentioned Logan Paul, but Grayson Waller also, I think, is a really good shout. A really good shout to have Grayson Waller in that position. Austin Theory as well, as I mentioned too. Khalid says, don't worry, Tom, I always believe your news. I'm not worried about that, Khalid. I believe my news, otherwise I wouldn't report it. I have multiple sources, I fact check everything I can. If I don't have multiple sources, I say outright, I've only got one source in this, so it's a rumour. But CM says, any news on Solo turning on Roman and challenging him anytime soon? The news that I've reported as regards Solo definitely suggests that there is a WrestleMania feud coming between the two, or at least that's what they're considering at the moment. The issue is, of course, that the plans that Triple H puts forward don't always get carried over because of Vince McMahon. Hello Vegeta, how are you? And hello Gomar, nice to see you guys. Quinn says, what happened to Drew McIntyre? He will be challenging Gunter. He'll be on Raw tonight. LF says, would not be surprised if Roman takes a chunk of time off. He has 2 films lined up via IMDb, including a live Action Force film. Given his dates, some time off for him makes incredibly simple sense. Ronnie says, I expect we'll see more of Edge when WWE visits Canada after SummerSlam. Yes, we will. He still has a number of dates on his contract. I think they're trying to make it so that when Roman steps away for a bit, Edge steps in to fill the gap. John says, a Bray Wyatt fan, I just want to see him thrive and enjoy his craft. Regardless of what people think of him, he offers something different to the WWE product. No, I absolutely agree with you. That's also the problem. Vegeta would prefer Edge at SummerSlam. Brad says it was really good and got more eyes on Grayson. This being the feud. Daniela says SummerSlam meaning gets better build-up and promos. The other Mike says was a great showing for Waller, which is more important than Edge in my opinion. That I wholeheartedly agree with. FDR says, I think if it's a match at SummerSlam, I'd rather have Waller go over Edge. If it's on SmackDown, I'm fine with either result. It was always going to be Edge going over, unfortunately. Eric says, do you feel like Dom fits Bray's world? Nope, once again because of Rhea Ripley. You know the deal says good call. Edge versus Grayson Waller wouldn't have fit on SummerSlam. PLEs should be feud-driven matches only. Do you then, question directly for you, do you then disagree with Logan versus Ricochet? Because that's not really a feud, I would say. Razar says, considering the outcome, Edge versus Waller happening at SmackDown was the right choice. Don't want to see Edge beating someone else at pay-per-view for no reason. Joey says, there's a plan for Roman to hold the title for another year? Not that I'm aware of, no. Ross says they put Waller over at the end, which I was okay with, although if you're really going to put over Edge, could take the L. He could, and sometimes he should. Jones says SmackDown for Edge, would like to see Edge put over the younger talent. FDR has renewed the channel supporter membership for a 9th month. Thank you kindly, FDR. I very much appreciate that. Very much appreciate you. Spider-Boss says Dominic's push reminds me of a young Randy Orton. I wouldn't go that far. Dominic Mysterio's been on the main roster for 3 years before winning his first championship, firstly. And secondly, well, not his first championship, he won the Tag Team Championship, of course. That's certainly worth considering. But Dominic is certainly not a legend killer, and that's how Randy Orton was booked early. Alex says, Royal Rumble 2024 rumour is it's Camping World Stadium or Tropicana Field. Thank you, Alex. Also says, Cody versus Brock is Bull Rope or 3 stages of hell. I can see it being a strap match. It's not going to be 3 stages. I definitely don't see that. Spider-Boss said, I just want to see Edge put over anyone in the main roster. Me too. And also says, since Judgment Day has been interacting with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn lately, I wouldn't mind if we could get Kevin Owens and Liv Morgan versus Dominic and Rhea. Sean says, Edge has hardly taken an L since he's been back. The loss to Austin Theory was a distraction by Finn. Indeed it was. Ronnie says, WWE will be in Canada August 11th to 21st. Makes sense, it's a good shout. Dad says, do you know Pac in AEW? Who was he in WWE? Daniel's already answered that question. Joey, I've answered that one a couple of times. Uncle Howdy is already being actively written by Bray. We'll see what happens when he comes back. RF says, do you think there's any animosity between Triple H and Vince? None whatsoever, no. Eric says, if he's leaving for a while, then please give Jay the titles. That is in no way how that works. Ronnie says, 2 SmackDowns, 2 Raws, plus the live events. Oh, it's going to be a busy time. I would certainly be open to a mini tour from Edge then. That'd be perfect. FDR says, Becky squashing Bianca is technically an impromptu match at a SummerSlam PLE nonetheless. Very true. CM says, anything on MVP and Omos joining Bobby's new Hurt business? More on that shortly, but the short answer is no. Peter says, I'm here but lurking. Great show as usual. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you had a great weekend. Thank you, Peter. Welcome to the show. Good to see you, mate. Angel Lucia says, I think I might get Randy versus Cody for the world title at Mania, main event night 1. Pardon me. Since it's a big money match, it certainly is. And I think that's not an impossibility. Vigi says, Edge always wins, which so far is true. Dark Society says, if Roman retains at SummerSlam, we might get Solo versus Roman at WrestleMania, which I've mentioned a few times myself. Joey says, MVP working behind the scenes since he hasn't been used as a manager. Yes, he is. He's working a lot behind the scenes to help develop talent. He also has been appearing backstage at NXT quite a lot recently and working with the people there. Marcel says, can you see Edge against Bray? No, and if it is, it's not going to be good. Khalid says, I'm very happy that you're my favourite YouTuber and favourite TikToker. Thank you, Khalid. Appreciate that. You know the deal, says Logan only performs at PLEs. I suppose the best forced feud he had. Glad to see Ricochet at SummerSlam though. Yeah, it's a big opportunity for him. The other Mike says, is Bo Dallas only joined at the hip to Bray storyline? Yes. Welcome, Thomas. How you doing, mate? You've missed a breakdown of what's been happening with Bray Wyatt. That's 2 minutes in if you do want to rewind. We've also talked about Roman taking some time off and Edge being cut from SummerSlam. Alex, I'm not sure where your source is for that. I haven't heard anything about dog collar. Spider-Boss says, fans wanting Jey Uso beating Roman. It's just fans wanting Roman to lose the title after so long. That is certainly an opinion, and you are entitled to it. Becky and Seth have also been spoken about as potentially taking time off after SummerSlam. This would sort of require a big title change for Seth Rollins, but it's also, again, a very strong possibility. They are looking at new contracts, which would make them limited date, and it's taking some time off to film and indeed to spend time with their family is on the agenda. They do not have contracts that require them to be at Raw every single week, but with Seth Rollins as a world champion, that certainly does raise questions. After Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch round up their feud, I don't expect to see Trish or Becky for at least a few weeks. Becky for a few weeks, Trish basically at all. I think this is it for Trish Stratus. She's been talking to Alexa Bliss for a long time about potentially doing a feud and a match there. That obviously is not available at this point in time, though I will talk about a match that had been planned for SummerSlam for Alexa Bliss, because there is one, and I think you guys are going to be a little bit annoyed that you missed out on it, because I certainly am. Trish Stratus is likely to be walking away from the WWE, as is, of course, Ronda Rousey, taking a loss to Shayna Baszler and then heading off into this sunset. She is not planning to return to the WWE at this point in time. They have offered her a pretty good deal to essentially sign a temporary contract, which would still see her working with the company, but not necessarily working many matches. She is believed to have rejected that at this point in time. Moxie says, Roman is scheduled to be on every SmackDown besides the one before SummerSlam. WWE on Fox posted on Twitter 2 weeks ago. Okay, so you mean after SummerSlam. Spider-Boss says, 2 years since the women's division main evented a pay-per-view on WWE. Last time we main evented a pay-per-view was WrestleMania 37, if I'm not wrong. Is that the Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair one that you're referring to? In addition, it's mostly because Roman's simply inescapable. Alex says, Finn wins and cashes in on Damien. Do you mean the other way around? Chris says we could do Bliss versus Trish at Mania. We absolutely could not. The pregnancy is not going to be all done and dusted at that point. Ronnie says AEW, WWE and Impact have kept the road to Canada busy this summer. No time for the grass to grow. Joey says, is WWE viewing Ricochet in a bigger role since they're putting him in a match with Logan Paul? Nope. Logan Paul specifically requested Ricochet. There'll be a little bit more on that and the other people he could have wrestled a bit later. It's LA Knight. I'll tell you more as we get to it. Eric says, who would you have Dom defend against for the Great American Bash? I honestly don't know who he won the championship from. The name's not in my head at the minute. Razar says, do you think Bray is going to be on Raw or SmackDown when he returns? I'd just be happy that he would return. It's not a guarantee right now. Thomas says, I'll be back to catch up with the Bray story at the end of the stream, mate. Good call. FDR says, I wouldn't mind Finn defeating Seth for the title. Nor I, really, particularly with the briefcase situation. You know the deal, says, curious you have an idea on total matches for SummerSlam. Vince always wants more and Triple H prefers a shorter card with longer matches. Yes, he does. Triple H is looking at 8. Vince wanted to extend it to 11 or 12. Eric says, it's a shame we never got Lita versus Liv Morgan in some kind of extreme match. Neither of them really pushed for it. Joey says, maybe Ronda's trying to cash in on a bigger deal with the UFC. If so, you wouldn't leave the WWE. Endeavour is about to be in a situation where they run both WWE and UFC, and they are looking at offering people contracts that cover both WWE and UFC. The people being offered these contracts are people like Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar. CM says, I see Carmelo Hayes losing the title, then that gets him called up. Dylan says, is Roman taking time off after SummerSlam? I've literally just covered that one. Pop it back by 10 minutes and you'll see my answer. FDR thinks Dom defends against Dragon Lee. Thank you, Brad. It was Wesley. Of course it was. Danielle says, Wesley, but Mustafa Ali was meant to face him for the title of Great American Bash. Probably be Ali versus Lee versus Dom in a triple threat. JJ says, hey Tom, so Becky's taking a break. Whoever Wrestling World is said she's not. I'm not aware that Wrestling World has any sources. But once again, we'll see what actually happens on that one. There are plenty of reports out there that Becky's taking a lot of time off. And she does have breaks built into her contract. I personally do not expect to see her for a couple of weeks. See how it goes. No, Thomas, I have no intention of streaming NXT watch parties. That's not what I do. Joey says, they tease Carmelo Hayes joining Bobby's new group. Do you have any news on this? Yes, I do. Quite a bit, actually. Thank you, Spider-Boss. Appreciate that. Alex, I have nothing on Nick Aldis. Also, Dragunov loses the title match and goes to the main roster and faces Gunter for the IC title. Nope. Drew McIntyre versus Gunter is where we are, and it looks like it'll be where we stay for a little bit of time. The Bloodline will continue to be in and around championships for a while to come. The World Heavyweight Championship and the Tag Team Championships being on their agenda at this point in time. And of course championships in NXT, such as the one currently held by Dominic. The plan for the Bloodline, as I mentioned previously, is a year of the Bloodline. They will be not just competing for championships, but winning them in a Tag Team Championship run when Finn Balor and Damien Priest have the championship and the briefcase could certainly be very entertaining, particularly as a good way to split those championships up. The Bloodline are going to be key moving forwards. They are considered the number one faction on Raw, and in fact, after Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, they are considered the top names on WWE Raw. Right now, Finn Balor is considered the top heel, though Gunter will likely be taking that spot sooner rather than later. Chris says, something I've wondered with the Endeavour deal, could we see some kind of cross-promotion between UFC and WWE? Yes, we will see cross-promotion between UFC and WWE talent and UFC and WWE events. The WWE are opening... Yes, thank you guys, I did mean Judgment Day. I did mean Judgment Day, thank you for correcting me. The year of Judgment Day. They're essentially the number one faction on Raw, etc. But yeah, that is the plan. There will be contracts being offered out which have people both wrestling and fighting under the same deal. Spider-Boss says about Becky, just Liv and Raquel could step up against Rhea on Raw, and they're both going to. Alex says, what will happen in War Games this year in Survivor Series? Your prediction or rumours? My prediction is War Games returns. They are actively speaking about storylines that they could put together that will build towards War Games matches. Spider-Boss says, with Ronda leaving WWE, that makes Rhea the top heel on the women's division of Raw. Yep, even before Ronda moved over, Rhea Ripley was still considered on top. Jordan says, so far I've been a big fan of Logan Paul's matches. Logan Paul versus Ricochet should be a great match. Razar says, Ronda suddenly leaving WWE is so interesting. Really thought her and Shayna were going to revamp the tag division. That was WWE and particularly Triple H's plan, but Triple H and Ronda Rousey butted a lot of heads, as I previously reported. Richard says, when's the Endeavour deal coming into effect? Very shortly. Vijit says, Becky disappears and reappears often. Yes, she does. Moxie says, do you see Finn beating Seth for the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam? My predictions will be coming soon. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are set to miss out on SummerSlam. There is no real active SummerSlam storyline planned for them. They are essentially main eventing and working on Raw to help keep Raw as the top draw that it can be. But Judgment Day versus Damien Priest and Dominic Mysterio of Judgment Day versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens was being considered for SummerSlam. It has been moved to Raw. That is a match that was put together, or at least pitched, by Vince McMahon. The Triple H moved off the card. It does not look like Sami Zayn and... Did I say Bloodline again? Terrible this. It does mean that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are currently planned to miss SummerSlam. So unless something changes, at least right now, there is no plan for Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens to appear at SummerSlam. Or at least wrestle on the card. Logan Paul was offered 2 potential wrestling matches. He asked for Ricochet. He was offered the possibility of LA Knight because, and I'll be very clear on this one, there was no plan for LA Knight to feature at SummerSlam. No plan whatsoever for him to feature. It is possible, as has been reported now, that LA Knight will have a brief promo segment to basically keep him in the public eye. The main reason for that is because the fans aren't really getting behind the WWE's attempts to keep him in the public eye, to give him matches, to give him promo segments. Triple H is essentially trying to say right now, look, I see what you're saying, it's going to happen. But Logan Paul chose Ricochet, and honestly, given their unnatural chemistry, I'm not going to say otherwise. Alex, we started the show by talking about Bray Wyatt. I'm not convinced he's going to be there, primarily because of who's reporting it. Spadabel says a possible War Games match could be Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus a Judgment Day. That is not the plan at current. Gomel misses SmackDown versus Raw at Survivor Series. Chris says, when do we see Bayley versus Shotzi? As soon as Bayley is fit to do so. Razar says, Sami KO versus Judgment Day happened last week on Raw. I really thought that was going to be the SummerSlam match. It was intended to be, that's why they moved it off, and instead it happened on Raw. Joey says, did WWE trying to get Cena or Bad Bunny for SummerSlam? No. No attempt was made. Speaking of LA Knight, LA Knight's push is, as I previously reported, planned to start after SummerSlam. It's very nice now seeing accounts like BWE and Boozer report what I've already reported a few weeks ago, that the plan for LA Knight is to wait until after SummerSlam to start the push. Paul Heyman requested the bump against Jey Uso. When Jey Uso gave him a super kick and Heyman went down, Heyman himself was involved in the production of that segment, offered his suggestions, and was told essentially, yeah, absolutely, you take that bump. So Paul Heyman working to put over Jey as best he can in the absence of Roman Reigns by taking those bumps. Plans for Rhea Ripley at the moment involve her holding her championship until WrestleMania. So at the moment, she is essentially situated in the best possible situation. The WWE are hoping to keep Rhea Ripley as champion until WrestleMania. There are plans in place for her to continue working with Raquel Rodriguez, Liv Morgan and Shayna Baszler in the build-up to WrestleMania, but it looks like Becky Lynch will be the one at WrestleMania to make that challenge. Personally, while I've only been told that Rhea Ripley will be champion until WrestleMania time, and that's the current plan, I think she may be the champion for a little while longer than that. Just going to catch up on chat before I get to my last 3 pieces of news. Gomar says, any returns planned for SummerSlam? Nothing I can really comment on. Eric says, what do you think was the biggest wow moment in the recent history of SummerSlam? Mine is Becky coming back as a face to squash Bianca in 21 and turn heel. Now, I did report the day before SummerSlam that Becky Lynch was going to be there, and she did have new wrestling gear that she was bringing with her. Only place you got that report was right here on Spoiler Warning. So it's difficult for me to say that was a surprise, but I still loved it. Every Day says, BWE reported Bray returning at SummerSlam. Zero stole it, made it their own report. Well, Zero News is getting all the credit for it from everywhere. Thomas says, how big of a push can we expect for LA Knight? Not to the very top, but certainly they're intending to give him enough momentum that if the fans stay behind him, he'll get there. John says, Paul Heyman just gets it. Love his work. Alex says they need to do War Games 3v3v3 for the first time since 2017. If so, Imperium would definitely be the one. Spider-Boss says apart from Becky and Liv and Raquel and Shayna, Rhea doesn't have many rivals on Raw. You've just listed 4, mate. 4 doesn't seem like not many, especially when you factor in she's already wrestled Natalya and Zelina. She's got options. But, as we're there, let's talk about what the original plan was for Rhea Ripley at SummerSlam. Because it's taken me a long time to get hold of this information, the original plan for SummerSlam at the beginning of the year, that Triple H was putting together, would have been Alexa Bliss taking on Rhea Ripley for the Women's Championship. Alexa Bliss would not have won this, but it would have been the high-profile match that they wanted for SummerSlam. They wanted to give Rhea Ripley a big opponent going into SummerSlam because they knew they didn't have many people in the build-up to that. Alexa Bliss would have been the one to get the nod and challenge Rhea Ripley. Spider-Boss was surprised when Becky returned at SummerSlam. Sean says both Jey Uso and Charlotte Flair are undefeated at SummerSlam. I see their streaks ending this year. Yeah, me too. Joey prefers Raquel getting the shot. Vegeta says Lesnar with a tractor was shocking. Pardon me. Then I have to say Roman catching the microphone. Because it was glorious. Joey says he also reported Bayley was cleared to come back and she returned at SummerSlam. Yep, she'd been cleared for a while. They were just waiting for the right storyline. SummerSlam was the right moment. I remember the hatred that a lot of people in this chat right now got because when Fightful Select reported that, they said, oh, Tom Colohue already said that. And yeah, Sean Ross Sapp gets real hot in DMs. Like, it's bad. He's abused a lot of people here. Like, hurled abuse at them completely unnecessarily. For basically them saying something that actually happened. Do you not like the truth, Sean? Do you just not like it? Brad was surprised by the start of Damage Control last year. Razar said they could do brand versus brand war games, like Team Raw versus Team SmackDown inside war games. Twitter would hate it. Well, sorry, X would hate it. But I don't know on that one. She did return as a heel, Sean. That's exactly what happened. Chris says that hurts not being able to see Ripley versus Bliss. Spider-Boss says Raquel versus Rhea is more interesting for me. Moxie says maybe LA Knight could be Solo Sikoa's first feud after WrestleMania. I think people would rather LA Knight pick up wins. And Spider-Boss says, I got attacked by SRS for putting you over with the Bayley news last year. Yes, you did, Spider-Boss, and I still remember that. I appreciate you standing up for me and trying to spread the word. Some people really don't like it. You know the deal says assuming Roman closes SummerSlam, any idea on the opening match? Logan Paul versus Ricochet is likely to be the opening match for SummerSlam. 2 more pieces of news. Firstly, the WWE have been in contact with Trinity about a return to the WWE. It is not official contract. They've in no way offered her a deal. She has been sounded out about potential interest to return to the WWE. They are apparently, and I quote, desperate to have her back. Moxie says, I just thought of that. Bliss versus Rhea would have been incredible. Joey says, have you heard anything new on Pillman Jr.? I have not. Chris says, what's the story on Big E? Is he due back anytime soon? He has not been cleared at this point in time, but he's said to be in very high spirits, and he seems likely to be cleared within the next few months. I wouldn't expect him immediately. He was backstage at SmackDown. That's not unusual. That's not unusual. Alex, William Regal may, he may not. It's entirely up to him. Daniel says, is it true that WWE is working with AEW on a Cody Rhodes American Nightmare documentary? They're not working with AEW, no. Jordan says, Tom Creep up the great work. I honestly don't know these accounts who report incorrect news time after time, get the followers and likes, etc. Yep. Confusing. Timitar says, would that mean they want Mercedes back too? There is no correlation. I reported something about someone completely different. CM says, any news on Kofi or Woods' return? Relatively soon. Spider-Boss says, Trinity back on WWE would be cool. I think fans would chant Sasha once Trinity appears. Possibly yes, and those fans need to shut the hell up because that is rude. Alex, Kota Ibushi is already in AEW. She is Impact Champion, Vegeta. She's also got a pretty airtight contract, which is why they're not approaching to have her sign. Ross says, maybe Rumble return. I am not in any way going to put my name on any date of a Big E return. Over the next few months, people who are reporting now that, oh, this person's coming, will start reporting that, oh, Big E's coming this month. Sorry, he's coming this month. Why did I say sorry? They wouldn't say sorry. Bad sources, it's this month. Sources got it wrong, it's this month. John says, are you planning a fake news breakdown for the rumours and reports regarding SummerSlam? I don't always have the time, unfortunately, to do the necessary research. I am tempted to, in the Discord, ask people to bring me news reports that I can then break down. Maybe I'd set up a channel for that or something like that. But that's an option, and probably one that I'd have to take to save the time. Spiderball says, do you know when we could see Jade Cargill? No idea. Sean says, that's why AJ Lee shouldn't return. All the fans would chant CM Punk. I've mentioned that before and I stand by it. Appreciate that, Joey. I tried to give you the rumour killers that I can, but unfortunately it's a lot of work researching, because you have to be absolutely 100% before you call something fake news. Alex says, is WWE considering bringing back old WWE pay-per-views? Not really. They're considering bringing back some nostalgia names. And Sean says, would you do a fake news breakdown on Boozer? Well, I'd have to know if it's fake first, so I'd have to go to that account and then go through all of their reports. So if you guys know that there's fake news out there, bring it to me. Bring me the fake news, stick it in the Discord, and we'll get on that. That'd be fun. Yes, Joey, you're not wrong. Rosal says, WWE could really use Naomi back right now. The women's roster is a little thin right now, especially on SmackDown. I disagree as regards SmackDown. Like, there are 6 women actively getting pushed on SmackDown right now. Finally, Bobby Lashley. Now, Bobby Lashley was going to be doing another segment on SmackDown with the Street Profits. The idea being, of course, that where they're headed is a new version of whatever the Hurt Business was. Bobby Lashley wants to lead the faction and essentially just do something which helps his fellows get over. The Street Profits are going to be working with him. Bianca Belair is also of interest to the faction, so she basically has a decision now. Now, there is no intention, or there was no intention, on Friday SmackDown to have NXT wrestlers involved in it. However, the general reception from Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, from Bobby Lashley, from the Street Profits, and from the fans has made Triple H rethink that position. And now there is every possibility that Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes will be joining Bobby Lashley as he leads a new faction. This faction is believed to be essentially spending the next 6 months or so building up, at which point it will start to replace the Bloodline as the Bloodline continues to splinter. It is going to be an extremely strong push for Bobby Lashley. Chris says, I personally think turning Bianca heel wouldn't be a bad move, and I wholeheartedly agree. FDR likes heel, says AJ Lee's going to be featured. Danielle says, Dragunov could win the NXT title. Yeah. Vegeta says, I just always say people will be back when they're back. There's no point in over-anticipating. I agree with that. And FDR says, will they be using the name Hurt Business or something new? I find it much more likely it'll be something new. The Hurt Business name was MVP's, and MVP, from what I can tell, is not going to be involved in this one. Joey, no, Cedric and Shelton have not been mentioned as part of the group. CM, it looks like they're going to be heel rather than face. We are currently still on 2,545 subscribers. If you like the show, if you've enjoyed the news, please do remember to hit subscribe if you haven't already. We are also on 59 likes. If we can just get one more, that takes us to 60. But in the meantime, I am going to be wrapping up. We will have more videos coming over the next few days about SummerSlam and everything incoming. Plus, as usual, I'll be wrapping up quite a bit of this news to put into a video tomorrow, particularly the Bray Wyatt news. But in the meantime, we've been live for an hour. That's going to have been our spoiler warning. So I hope everyone has a fantastic week ahead. I've been Tom Colohue, and I'll see you all very soon.